Aggie, I like that.
Yeah.
So, so tell me about where you are right now and what you're up to.
Well, Pity starts on Monday,
Mm-hmm.
and so I flew out yesterday, and I'm staying at a dear friend of mine's parents' house on the beach in near the Cinque Terre for a couple of days. Since it's a 9 hour time difference, I give myself a couple of days to adjust now because I'm getting old and I need it. So,
Yeah.
so I
And
flew out, arrived yesterday.
you're like, you do this circuit twice a year, right? Tell me about like your schedule, your yearly schedule. You go to all the fashion weeks, right?
Yeah, I mean, these days, now that I work for myself and own magazine, I don't go to London Fashion Week anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I used to attend that when I was the fashion director of Bloomingdale's. Now I do Pitti, Milan, Paris, home to LA, and then back for New York.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah,
Um,
it ain't
so
bad. Like, I mean, it ain't the easiest thing in the world. You could
yeah,
be in much worse places, though. I'll tell you that. But it's a lot of work. It's a lot
yeah.
of work.
Do you have do you travel light or do you ship clothes or what's your strategy in terms of packing and
Ship?
traveling?
No, they don't do that anymore. That's like back in the Andre Leon Talley days. Yeah, I try and pack light. I try and keep it to one suitcase in the summer, and then one big one, and one small one in the winter.
Hmm.
It's just there's a lot of planes, trains, and automobiles over the course of 3 weeks on the road, so you need a lot of stuff, but at the same time, you don't want to. I've learned to pare it down as much as I can.
Yeah.
So,
You don't want to
but
make it harder than it needs to be.
well, I mean, I'm still in a pretty big suitcase, but I try and keep it as low profile as possible.
Yeah.
But because you gotta roll that thing. We're taking trains around here. This ain't
Right.
you don't get here.
In an
uh,
Uber SUV.
yeah, no, that ain't happening. I
Yeah.
just trucked it down half a mountain to get here. So that's you gotta take that stuff into account.
That's fun. Um, so I want to tell you like the site we're working on is sort of talking to young guys about entrepreneurship and business in kind of a more inclusive and modern and creative way. So, I thought you would be a good person to interview because you've had a really creative, successful background and you've done editorial and retail. Can you tell me just a little bit about the places you've worked and kind of how your career has morphed from one phase to another?
Sure. Like how far back you want me to go?
Well, I mean, give me broad strokes because I know you were at Fader and Esquire, right? Um,
Yes, my first job in editorial was at the Fader magazine.
mhm.
Back in 2001, I started towards the end of the year of 2001. I think it was November, but I mean, it was a long time ago now, so I can't tell you for sure. Um, but yeah, I worked at a clothing store when I was in high school, and I really thought I was going to open my own store like right away. That was what I wanted to do, but I also was an avid fan of magazines. I just love the idea of access, about like having exposure to all these things that I was interested in. So, my two favorite magazines at that time when I was in college were The Face and The Fader. The Fader had just launched at that time, and so when I came back to New York after school, I was introduced to the editorial team because a very good friend of mine was working in their photo department. And at the time, I was a window display guy for Urban Outfitters, building shit in the. Can I curse in this?
Yeah.
Okay. But I figured I should ask. Building shit in the basement of the store on West 4th Street in Manhattan, and I was introduced to the editorial team at the Fader, as I mentioned, through a friend of mine um, who was working as a photo assistant there, and they needed help in the fashion department, and I had never been a stylist before. And I was just like, I can't do this. And my friend was like, stop being an idiot. You put clothes on mannequins all day long. Like, just go.
Hmm.
And and that's really what it was. It was just like all hands on deck kind of thing. I mean, there was, I think, 6 of us putting out the magazine at the time, maybe 8.
Hmm.
And It was just such a wonderful experience to be part of something that felt like it was really capturing the moment, in the early 2000s in downtown New York, like the music scene, the art scene, the fashion scene was really sort of encapsulated in the pages of the Fader and some of our contemporaries like Vice magazine, Tokion magazine. Mm-hmm. It was just a big community back then, and so I was really lucky to be a part of it, and it opened a lot of doors for me. And a lot of the people who I worked with then have gone on to be just immensely successful people.
Yeah. It's funny how many, I feel like so many of my creative fashion friends did stuff for Urban Outfitters or Anthropologie or doing those windows. It's so weird.
You got to remember, like in the the late 90s, early 2000s, like Urban Outfitters was kind of where it was at,
yeah.
And it was an interesting organization to work for. I didn't part on the best terms with them, which we won't get into now, but it involved getting injured on the job. This is just kind of when you're working with the power tools, some things can go wrong. But,
and in the middle of the night, they have crazy shifts. I remember, like people would work through the night.
Well, that's what I did for the first 2 years I worked at the Fader, and I worked there for about 4 years. The first 2 years I worked at the Fader, I would go to work at 6 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. There's babies crying in the background, if you can hear that. I went to work at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I would be there until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon because the store opened at 10, so I would do most of my heavy movement of stuff around. And then I would go to the Fader. And I'd be at the Fader from 3 until God knows when. And then, obviously there was always a show or a party or something that we either needed to or wanted to go to. And I mean, I didn't have any money back then. So drinking free beers was as close as I was getting to dinner. So, so then I'd be out late, I'm not even sure what time I'd get home. And then 6 o'clock, turn around, do it again.
Yeah.
You can do that when you're 22. I don't think I can really do it anymore, but that was the way it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Urban was a good place to work back then. I mean, they definitely, I don't want to get into the talking bad about anybody's business, but they definitely bought a lot of really interesting, innovative brands and ended up copying a lot of really interesting, innovative brands, and then saying, it was at that time, it was definitely a place where a lot of creative people went, because you basically got a job being creative, which was cool. That doesn't happen in too many. I mean, there's aspects of retail that retailing and the retail industry that can be very creative, but Urban really captured a moment also. So it was a place to work.
So it's interesting that now after I think it was a decade or so in editorial and in retail, now you're owning your own store again. How has that experience been for you?
It's been great. It's been, being an entrepreneur is a very stressful thing. It's stressful in a different way than I've been stressed in the past. Mm-hmm. It's interesting. I knew after, I worked in a lot of different magazines over the years, and I got to work with some of my heroes, which was really great. And I've learned so much from so many different people over the years. And I learned so much working at Bloomingdale's, as their men's fashion director. And it really became time for me I got to a point in my life where I was like, if I don't try this now, I'm never going to do it. And I think that that's a moment that a lot of entrepreneurs, have. Some people are entrepreneurs from the day one, they never work for anybody else. They go off and they do their thing, and sometimes they're successful, sometimes they're not. But a true entrepreneur will try and fail and try again. Mm-hmm. I got to a point in my life where I looked at it and I said, if it's not now, I'm never going to do it. And I didn't know if I could live with that. Mm-hmm. And so I decided to try. And I also felt as though I felt that there was a necessity for what we try to do at Magazine, out there in the retail landscape, certainly in the menswear market for sure. there had reached a point when I looked around and I realized that the department store level, most, are you still there?
Yeah.
Or are you frozen?
I'm
okay,
here.
sorry. Make sure, because sometimes these things. I reached a point where I kind of looked around and I realized that there wasn't really anybody making a big deal about the new guys or the young guys or the old guys that were doing it in the right way, and girls, of course, too. I should say that. But what we try to focus on at Magazine is something that I think I definitely always championed in my years as an editor, and did as much to prop up when I was at Bloomingdale's as I could, but there's two extremes in fashion right now, right? There's the super high end, very exclusive, very flashy right now, brand focused, sort of hype model of fashion, and that's on one side. And then so people think like, oh, it's so expensive, it's exclusive, it's runway shows, it's jetting off to Cannes for 3 hours to see, a Chanel cruise show or whatever it is. And like, that's one aspect of fashion. And people have a hard time relating to that if they're not fans.
Right.
And then there's the other side of it, which is like disposable, where people have really started to not value clothing. Department stores play their part in that because of the constant cycle of discounting, of most stores having largely the same merchandise as others, like all the big chains. There's really only a small portion of what they sell in their stores that differentiates each one from another. Yeah. But most of it's the same, and most of it's from these really big brands that also have stores in the same malls usually, so there isn't really a whole lot of excitement there. But there's also just there's a lot of there's fatigue on the part of the customer, and they are not stupid. And if you put things on sale all the time, or if you are someone like H&M or Zara or whoever who make your clothing so cheap that as to be disposable, which is hiding a lot of the production costs, hiding a lot of the environmental impact, hiding a lot of the transportation costs. Those kinds of things impact the price, or they should, but when you reach a certain economy of scale, you can circumvent that, which is what H&M and Zara and those kind of people do. And so it makes people feel as though clothing can either be thrown away or it's a precious art piece. But there's a lot in between there that is worth paying attention to, worth celebrating. What we focus on in the store is craftsmanship, innovation, and rarity. What's it made out of? Who made it? Why'd they make it? Where was it made? How many of them did they make? Those are the things that we kind of think about when we're buying for the store, and our customers appreciate it. It is that narrative, why is this being made? Who made it? What's the reason? Right. What's their path? Those are the stories that we love to tell in magazines, and there really wasn't a store in the United States, I should say, that was really paying attention to it on that sort of like granular level. And so, we ended up partnering with a lot of brands that I've had a lot of respect for and worked with in the past for years, that my business partners felt the same way about. And, we created something that we felt was different than other things that are in the market. And that's the most important thing, I think, for any entrepreneur to really think about. The method of business, the way you do it is important, obviously. But what are you contributing? What are you doing that's different from everybody else? What's your angle? Just because other people do something and are successful at it doesn't mean that you should try and jump on that bandwagon. You're passionate about it because it's hard. It's really hard, Right. And that's I think that's the most pertinent piece of advice that I can give, is that do it because you think the world needs it, or do it because you really love it. Because, if you're not doing it for one of those two reasons, there's a good chance that it's going to eat you.
Totally. And I feel like with the store, like, I don't buy menswear myself, but working in the industry, like, I feel like I walk in and you can immediately tell that there is like such care and consideration that goes into every piece that's bought for the store, and it all feels like a story. And I think in business you can tell when a business is built on a mood board that somebody in an office puts together, or is built by somebody who like blood, sweat, and tears believes in the idea. I think
Well, I appreciate that, and you're not the first person who said that to me, and I really appreciate it every time I hear it. Point of view is the only thing that you can't replicate on a scale. It's something that's very personal to me and to the guys that I started this business with. We believe in it. We believe that people. We believe that people believe. And the other thing about it is that it doesn't need to be for everybody. It for who it's for. And hopefully those guys, and they have been finding us, and they come to us, and when they find us, they come back because they appreciate it. They appreciate that we think of these things in the way that they do. They're coming to us, and they might be the most jaded person. I got a bug in my ear. Good Lord. They might be the most jaded, person when it comes to buying clothes, or just like any, or anything really. And they come to our store, and there's a damn good chance that they're gonna find something they haven't seen anyplace else. And I think that they really appreciate that. I think what I mean is when I say it's not for everybody, I'd say that there's probably only 20% of men who care enough about clothing the way that we do to really be, customers. We hope more and more people care about it as time goes by, and I think that that's true, and I think that that's happening more and more as men get more informed about these kinds of things, that they almost start to treat it as a hobby, like the way that they would care about cars, or the way that they would care about whiskey, or the way they would care about the Knicks, or whatever it is. They start to care about their clothing in the same way, and once you turn that corner and you realize what goes into these things, the value that you put in them is so much higher, and you start to think about, well, okay, I need this to complete my collection, or my wardrobe. It becomes your collection. You take care of it. You keep it for a long time. Some people flip it, and they go on Grailed or whatever they do, and that's fine too.
Yeah.
But those are the kind of guys that I love it when they come in. Who like they come in, they think they're going to be there for 5 minutes, and they end up spending an hour and a half. Just
totally.
Just talking, talking shop. That's when I feel good. That's when I feel like we're really building a community, and the people that work for me in the store try to carry that on when I'm out here on the coast, or running around at the shows. That's the message. We want participation, and we want permanence, or longevity in the thing you buy. We want you to feel happy that you bought it, and if you come into the store and I'm there, and you look kind of iffy, like I'm not sure, I'll either convince you that you need it because like I really believe you do, or I'll say don't buy it because I don't want you buying anything in my store that's not going to be a good part of your life. I don't want that hanging in the closet. Yeah.
It's funny because like as much as I feel like the lines that you carry and the vibe of the store is really modern, I feel like the hospitality or like customer community piece is sort of old school in a way. It's like every customer that comes in, work with them to find, like, open their mind, and that's sort of an old school notion of the way retail works. It's become so impersonal. Like, I was in a store the other day and I ordered what I wanted in the dressing room on an iPad.
And that's a way forward.
Yeah.
I think that right now in retail, we got to try a lot of different things.
Yeah.
And I think that what's interesting about this moment is that a small store like mine, where we try to spend as much time with each individual customer as we can, on the entertainment, on the education, like on all those kinds of aspects of it, that's something that you can't replicate online.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, the reach that a store like mine has, where we only have, one location, and we have, a second location that was, temporary in Palm Beach, Florida. The impact that we can have on the industry is magnified 1,000-fold because of the internet. You know what I mean? So it's like we're on the west side of Los Angeles. A lot of people who are interested in fashion end up coming through Los Angeles, so that's cool. Mm-hmm. We have local customers, and we have people who are regulars from New York and San Francisco and London and Japan and wherever. But, the message can get so much farther because of because there's a growing interest. Like I said, I think when I started my career, it was probably 10% of men who really cared about this stuff. Now we're at like 20. Mm-hmm. We'll go to 25, then we'll be at 30. I mean, one day maybe it'll be 100%. Doubtful, but maybe it'll be. But those are the people who are actively seeking out this kind of stuff, and they can find out about you like that, because of modern technology. So I will never malign modern technology. I'm not going to have iPads where you can try stuff on in the dressing room, because you need to come in. We need to talk about it,
right?
Not really instilling my guys, because I want not only to provide really incredible service, but I also want the customer to feel as though they are talking to their peers when they're in the store and being helped by the people that work here or work there, I should say, because I'm not there now. But I think that that's super important. I think it's super important to build that rapport, to build that relationship. And yeah, that is old school. It's definitely old school. But we're not selling old school things. We're not like trying to be a throwback.
Right.
But there are times, and this is reflected in a lot of the products that we sell too. There's times that the old way, which is now the hard way, is the best way. I'm sure there are shortcuts that you can take. But if the end product suffers because of it, if it's not something that feels special, and the relationship that you build with the sales associates, or the relationship that you build with the clothes in the store and the brand doesn't feel special to you, well, then that's taking a shortcut that I don't want to take.
That's so good, Josh. You're amazing. Okay, so I'll just wrap up really quickly. Can you just tell me a little bit about the kind of like, I think that you have this, I feel like the things that you carry feel totally at home in LA on the West Coast. There's like a relaxed sensibility, there's soft tailoring, there's beautiful fabrics, but it doesn't feel like that cliche LA palm tree t-shirt thing. So can you just talk a little bit about the kind of the point of view of what you buy from a style perspective?
Sure. I mean, the philosophy behind it is really rooted in the fact that men don't have to have two different wardrobes in their life anymore. There was a very long period of time where a man had to wear a suit if he was a professional person in a service industry, or in any sort of respect, like a position that garnered respect. You had to wear a suit and tie to work. That's not the case anymore. There's very, very few professions where you need to wear a suit and tie to work, and even less so in Los Angeles than almost any other major city in the United States. And so for me, once you take the idea that there's an on-duty wardrobe and an off-duty wardrobe off the table, you still want to be able to command respect and be taken seriously when you walk into a room. But that doesn't mean you can't have fun when you get dressed. And so you think about it, and it's just like, okay, well, a modern man is maybe going to have a conference call in the morning while they're still at home, and then they're going to go to the office for a few hours, but then they're going to be at Noya House for a meeting after that, and then they got to run out, and they're going to go to their kid's soccer game, and then they're going to run over to this drinks thing that they have with this other person, and then they got to go home real quick, but then they're catching a flight in the morning. That's life now. You don't really get to turn off anymore. And so your clothes should reflect that, and it should be a continuum. There are days when you need to be a little bit more casual. There's days where you need to be a little bit more dressed up, but it should all work together. And so that's how we really try and think of it at the store. We sell clothes for grown-ups, but not people who take it seriously, that take themselves seriously, but not how they present themselves. I'm not saying exactly the way I want to, so let me think about how to say this a little bit better. Because I think that it's something that you should take joy out of. That doesn't mean that you should look silly. You should feel really confident. You should feel great in things that you wear. And so that's why materials are so important to us. That's why silhouettes are so important to us. That's why color and pattern are so important to us. Because we want a guy to feel great. We want a guy to be noticed, but we don't want him to be looked at like he's not presentable, So like we all think about, is this something that somebody can wear to work? Is this something that somebody can show up and be the best dressed guy in the room if he's wearing this? And, you know, we want to add those pieces to a guy's wardrobe. I'm not trying to overhaul. I'm trying to evolve, you know. There are some designers who I love to death who we can't sell in the store because it just doesn't work with the other stuff that we have in there. You know, we want to put things in context, always, you know, and we want things that are a little bit weird to fit with things that are a little bit more conservative so that you can kind of find your vibe somewhere in there, you know, because we really believe in individual style. We really believe in building wardrobe over time. And having that wardrobe represent you.
Yeah.
And so that's what we think about when we think about what we're buying for the store. Does it fit into sort of the positioning that Magasin is? And, you know, we try to keep it a little bit crunchier. We definitely keep it loose and soft. We definitely keep it light and airy. We love color. We love pattern. But we don't love Hawaiian T-shirts.
Right.
But we do love Hawaiian shirts. But they're fly ones, you know, so it's like it's always that. It's just like there's room for everything in a guy's wardrobe. From sweatpants to Hawaiian shirts to leather jackets to sneakers to dress shoes to jeans to slacks, as long as they're the right ones, and the right ones for you. And so, you know, that's what we try and have. We try and have several different options at all times for guys when they come in, but they all need to make sense and be, you know, honest to what Magasin is, but it also needs to be something that can work into almost any man's wardrobe. And I truly believe that we have something for everyone.
Yeah, totally.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Okay, so when you see guys out in the world as a fashion expert, like what, or any guy that walks in your store, like what's, I don't want to call it a pet peeve, but what's like the thing that you wish you could impart on all guys? Like, guys, you need this one item, or you need to do this one thing and it'll improve your game so much.
See, I don't think it comes down to one thing or one item. I think the only thing that I wish more men had was the right attitude.
Okay, cool.
Clothing, because if you think about it, there's a lot of men out there who will, you know, you can tell them, you know, they think, and you know, I'm sure that you've had this experience before. Almost every man in the world thinks that that they were born, you know, to walk on water, and that, you know, like their opinions are always right about everything. You know, it's just like their opinion is rock solid on pretty much everything, from politics to music to movies to, you know, whiskey or whatever it is. You know, like, you can't argue with them. You can say your piece, but then they're just gonna say like, okay, thanks for talking, but now I'm just gonna tell you why you're wrong. You know, but when it comes to clothing, a lot of men don't know what to do, and they become very self-conscious, where in every other part of their life they have a rock solid opinion. And what I want men to have is an opinion about clothing. Totally. You know, it's totally the same as any of those other aspects of their life that they feel so confident in. And you know, part of that is, to me, and I've said this to guys before. I remember very specifically, this was before I opened my store, but I was at Bloomingdale's and I was doing a suiting event in San Francisco, and this really handsome, really successful man was like, "Oh man, I love your jacket." I was wearing a brown window pane jacket, you know, and he was just like, I was like, "You like it? I got it right over here. Why don't you come try it on?" And he said, "I could never pull that off." And I said, "Why not?" He said, "Well, it looks great on you, but I can never pull that off." And I said, "Let me tell you something. You are better looking than me. You are richer than me. You're more than me. The only reason that you think I can pull this jacket off and you don't think you can pull this jacket off is because my attitude is I wear this jacket because I love it. Not because of what people think of me, not because of like I'm worried about being appropriate for the workplace or the date or what my significant other or my friends will think. I'm wearing this because I love it. And you can see that on my face when I'm wearing it. So you need to have that attitude about it too." And he tried it on and he loved the jacket. Yeah. And he bought it. And, you know, that, and, you know, listen, I made a sale and that's fine. But what I did that was more important to me was that I changed his perspective on it. Right. Yeah. You know, all of a sudden he's looking at clothes the way he looks at the other things in his life that he values. You know, if you buy a car you want to show off, okay, fine. You know, but it shows what your taste is. You know, how do you decorate your house? Like, what does your office look like? All these things are indications of who you are as a person. You can call it superficial if you'd like, but, you know, to me, clothing is your first offering to the world. And I mean, it's a basic it's a basic necessity of being a human is to wear clothes. You know, you got food, you got shelter, huh? You need clothes. We wouldn't have been able to colonize this whole planet so quickly if it wasn't for clothes. What do you think? They're going to be in the Arctic wearing loincloths? No, it ain't going to work. So clothing is essential to being human. And even more than that, it's essential to being an animal. You know, display is so important to mating rituals and you know, hierarchies and the social orders of every animal on this planet. You know, we don't got feathers. We don't have fur, you know, so we got to wear clothes. That's what it is. So it is a valuable thing to any human. And so, you know, I wish that people would take it more seriously. And that is the attitude that I'm talking about, that I wish more people had.
Totally.
Because look like you care, then people take you more seriously.
Yeah.
And that's just, you know, like people, you command more respect. Even if you look a little out there, and I wear some weird shit. Taking it seriously, taking care, consider is what's important, you know, because there's guys that come into the store and there's people I meet out there in the world, particularly in the fashion industry, but in many different places where I'm just like, I love the way they look. I'd never wear any of that shit.
Right.
But I love the way they look because it looks perfect for them. And you can tell that it's them.
It's them.
You know?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what I try to cultivate in people at the store, and that's what I wish more men had. And I think it's happening. You know, I think it's happening slowly. But I'm sure, you know, you see it out there in the world. There's I mean, you know, athleisure aside, let's just put that over here for a minute. You know, it really, and at least sweatpants fit now. Good Lord, you know, like a couple weeks ago. So anyway, that's my.
I mean, that's I love everything you say. I'm gonna call you every week now. We're gonna make this a regular thing. So just to finish up, so we're asking all of our collaborators and FaceTime interview subjects to, our name is ONE37PM, and the idea is that if you want to like own your future, you have to start this minute. And it's about like that hustle and that, like, you know, seizing every opportunity to build towards your goals. So I'm asking you if you can fill in the blank at 1:37 p.m. I am blank. Like, what are you doing to build your future? What's that thing for you?
At 1:37 p.m.?
Yeah.
Oh, man. What am I doing at 1:37 p.m.? Usually I'm taking lunch.
That's okay. Is taking a break a part of what makes you successful? That's a thing.
I think that it's extremely important to take a beat, you know, and sometimes your first reaction isn't the best reaction, so hold on that sometimes, you know. Don't respond to that email right away. Yeah, you could say that. I mean, at 1:37, I'm usually taking a break, you know, and I think that that's super important to make sure that the decisions that you make are actions, not reactions. You know, and I think in this world where you're bombarded constantly, you don't get downtime unless you do it on purpose. And so I think it's very purposeful and very important to work that into your schedule, to make sure that you take time for yourself, to unplug and to do things that are only beneficial to you as a person, that don't I mean, hopefully they benefit other people down the road, but it's not about that, because you need to come from a place of wholeness and strength to be able to affect change and to positively affect other people's lives. And so that only comes from taking time for yourself. If the battery's on E all the time, you know, you're no good to anybody. And so I think that that's super important. So yeah, at 1:37, I'm eating lunch and I'm reading the news. That's what I'm doing.
I love it.